Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us with Finding Solid Ground, how to make emotional safety a priority during the coronavirus pandemic. I am your host, Ruth Lutz, and before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to review. Today's workshop will be recorded and will be made available on our website following this session. There will be time for questions at the end of our workshop. To ask a question, you can click on your Q&A icon on your screen and type your question in during the presentation. You also have the option to ask a question verbally at the end of the workshop. While all microphones will be muted during the presentation, you may request to unmute your mic by clicking on the raise hand icon on your screen. All questions will be addressed in the order they are received. Any questions that we are unable to respond to during the webinar will receive an email response. Now, I am pleased to introduce you to today's speaker, Remy Kiak. Remy has been part of MHC's team for 27 years. Starting as a residential case manager, Remy worked her way up to program manager, director, vice president, chief program officer, and is now MHC's chief experience officer. Remy continues to bring her enthusiasm and passion to this work to the team. Remy has a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in marriage and family therapy. Please join me in welcoming Remy Kiak.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I'm getting a little reverberation in the background. Okay, we are good now. Good afternoon, everybody. So it's 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, at least in this part of the country. I wanted to thank everybody for joining me today, and I'm happy you did. Before I get started, I really just wanted to give a huge thank you to Susie Craig, Ruth Lutz, and Jacqueline Davis for helping put these webinars together in the midst of everything we've all had to do in preparation and managing this coronavirus pandemic. They have continued to just be their great creative selves and have been so supportive to getting these webinars together and out to the public, which is wonderful. Okay, so today I just want to start by saying saying something to everybody, and that is, I'll say it at the beginning and I'll say it at the end, which is, remember, you're not alone in what you're feeling right now. If we can hold on to that as we move through the rest of our webinar today, okay? You're not alone in what you're feeling right now. And I think in order to find solid ground, we have to be able to put some words and some meaning to what this is that we're experiencing, okay? The depth of emotion or the different changes. So let's spend some time talking about that. And then after we get done talking about that, let's spend the next half an hour talking about what we can do to help make ourselves feel emotionally safe, okay? Caring for ourselves. I think everybody's pretty clear that if you don't have your mental health, your physical health, you're not able to enjoy it. The other way around, if you don't have your physical health, it's hard to enjoy your time. And also our spiritual health. Are we connecting to something that we believe in that's outside of ourselves? All of these come together to form what we call whole health. There's many other pieces to this, but these are the major components. And it's so important that when we talk about health, we're including all three, okay? They're an integrated experience. One acts upon the other, okay? And one of the reasons we wanted to do this particular webinar today was because we're all paying so much attention to our physical health that many of us don't even broach the mental health piece. We either think it's just us or it's par for the course and there's nothing much we can do about it, or feeling a heck of a lot. We don't know what it is we're feeling, so it's kind of hard to even articulate it and talk and connect to other people around it. So let's see if we can make some sense of it today and take a look at where we're at, be able to relate to some of these things we talk about, and then kind of put some practices in place that could really help us through. And a little bit at the end too, we'll talk about how we can also support others, and a couple tidbits on helping to support kids and children. Okay. So respecting the stress bullets. Let me talk about that just for a second. So important. This has been going on now for well over a month, right? And we've all been experiencing many different emotions, but one of them that I think overall, I think really describes some of what we're feeling every day and on many different levels is stress. And that's a culmination of things that I can't really dive really deep into today, but we need to pay attention and we need to respect what goes on when, you know, we all know a little bit of stress helps us, you know, we tune in, we start to pay attention, that little bit of adrenaline might make us a bit sharper. However, when we have these long-term types of situations going on, this stress literally impacts us on a cellular level. What happens when we're constantly stressed? One, think about what our bodies have to do. Stress equals our bodies are noticing or red flagged about some kind of danger that we often can't even put our finger on. But the reaction in our bodies is fight, flight, okay, or just be completely paralyzed. Any of them are going to produce a reaction in our bodies that's not very good for us. Think about it. If you have to run away or stay and fight, what do we have to do? We have to be able to see really well. So what's going to happen is our pupils are going to dilate to flood us with light so we can see, right? Second thing is our heart rate and our blood pressure is going to increase. Our body's ready to have to move, okay? Every little bit of us is going to become engaged, okay? Our blood vessels start to constrict, so we can divert oxygen to our muscle groups because we would need them if we were to fight or to run. We oftentimes become diaphoretic, which means clammy or sweaty, extremely uncomfortable. Think about for a minute what your body must be going through. For us, not even just sitting here, starting to become diaphoretic, okay? That's a pretty big reaction in our bodies. Also, our great old hypothalamus sends out the order, which is send in the stress hormones, that great old cortisol and adrenaline that does not serve us well at all for more than several minutes at a time, just floods out into our system. There's been a lot of studies. One in particular that I've really followed up on and researched is some studies by a gentleman by the name of Hans Seal. He actually was a person that coined the term stress. He had done laboratory experiments with mice and rat, and what he did was he had a control group and he had the experimental group. So he would put these mice or lab rats under stress. So it would either be constant light or flashing light, or small, very bothersome, if you will, small, tiny electrical shocks. The first group, under the same conditions, were not taught anything. They just lived like that. The other group, he taught them ways to diminish the stress, either by pressing a bar, which would shut the light off, or by pressing a bar that would shut off the electrical shocks. So what do we think happened? What was the difference between the two groups? Well, I can tell you the group that had found no way or were taught no way to diminish or reduce that anxiety or that stress they are under actually changed on the cellular level and began to grow cancerous tumors. Okay, I'm not saying this to make you even more anxious, but I think I need to highlight the importance of we need to pay attention to this right now. And we need to find the solid ground. We need to begin identifying what it is we're feeling, okay, because that is a huge part of our whole health. Okay, so we're on shaky ground, okay? Lots of grieving right now. And guys, like I said before, you're not alone in what you're feeling. In fact, far from it, because so many of us are experiencing a grief process around this time. It's rapid change and really kind of collective fearfulness. And you're not in it alone. We all are feeling that in some way, shape, or form. And some of it we get periods of relief from, some of it we don't. But I associate it with grieving. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So while many of us think that of grief as a response to actually losing something that you can see or something that's tangible, grief, it's much more complex phenomena. It's the feeling of loss of any kind. And grappling with that and getting through that involves a process, okay? Even if we can't touch or show somebody what it is, it's a process that we need to go through. We all know that there is, our normal isn't what our normal used to be. We've kind of lost a sense of our rhythm. A lot of people are talking about they can't just get their rhythm back. Certainly our routine has kind of been turned on its side. And some of us have lost not just those things that we can't see in terms of routine and the way we do things, but we may have been laid off from our jobs or lost our jobs temporarily. And we may have lost loved ones, or we may know people who have lost loved ones, okay? People are really experiencing this kind of sense of not being able to navigate. And they just feel that everything has become really, really difficult or bumpy or much more complex. Grief brings up so many questions. Grief sometimes has us return to a grief state that we were at a long time ago. You know, we kind of begin to revisit that emotionally, and certainly can develop really some complex scenarios that are really cumbersome to mitigate and get our grounding on. So they speak very, very often of the 5 stages of grief. I added the 5 stages of grief revised. I added a couple other layers that I found out there in research that I think were really important for us really to pay homage to. And you know, when we talk about grief, it's often framed around the concept of the 5 stages: that denial, anger, the bargaining, the depression, and the acceptance. I like this, but let's remember as we walk in through this, we don't magically get through all of these stages and then boom, we're done, we're good to go, we magically feel whole again. Stages can come and go. We can revisit different stages. You know, we all know that about journeys, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes when we go back to a different stage, we use different techniques. We find out what works for us. We find out what doesn't work for us. And we certainly find out things that we don't want to do again, which is great if we can use things differently moving forward. So I love this saying with, I sat with my anger long enough until she told me her real name was grief. I think that is so profound. And I think that's what a lot of us are experiencing, is this feeling that we just can't harness. You know, we feel like if we could just say exactly what it was, you know, and put it out loud, we could express ourselves and people would get it. And that's part of why I think today could be useful. So let's take a look at this, the 5 stages of grief, and pay attention, see which ones you're connecting with right now, okay? The first stage that we talk about is the denial and shock. We call this really the numb disbelief. I remember when I started hearing about COVID over in China, and I thought, oh, geez, those you know, poor folks. And I remember back when SARS and MERS was around and thinking that same thing, but feeling in some way disconnected from it because it was across the ocean. But when they started, you know, numbers were coming here and they started talking about it coming to the United States, then we had the first cases. I've got to be honest with you folks, I still was in denial. That's not going to come here. How's it going to get here? You know, well, time went by and it did. And it really took a lot for me to get out of that stage where no, this isn't going to happen. It's kind of the way I roll, but definitely learning lessons from it. The second stage is that we have added in that I find falls between the denial and the anger is the pain and the guilt. It's there. And I think pain kind of is that emotion that just becomes woven and remains in each of the stages. I just think that the pain lightens as we go forward and as time passes. And the guilt. You know, we know when we lose somebody, sometimes they talk about guilt in terms of reflecting back about maybe things we could have done differently for someone or with someone, or survival guilt, you know, why are we alive and they aren't, that kind of thing. And there's guilt with this too, you know, boy, did I do the right thing right away? Did I prepare myself well? Should I have not gone there? Should I even be leaving my house the one day a week to go get groceries? You know, it's all that. And guys, the guttural pain of it is painful to not be able to just go out and not think about what you're doing and where you're at and putting on any protective PPE equipment you might have. It's painful to not hug somebody that you're used to hugging. It's painful not to be able to see them in person. Okay, I know myself, I'm going to be hugging a lot of people way out from now, but I miss that. You know, talking to my friends from across the way or on video chat, and it is better than nothing. It is a connection, but boy, do I miss that touch, the whole haptics piece of it. It's touch. We communicate through touch a lot more than we ever think. Okay, and the pain, guys, it is suffering. But you've got to walk through it. If we decide that we're going to start numbing it in any way we choose to numb it and we don't feel it, it's there. It's just masked. And the minute our mask comes off, we still have to feel it. So it's really important that we learn those self-care techniques to use while we're sitting in the pain, okay? Because the pain and that feeling of pain will not destroy us, okay? Next stage, anger. Why does this have to happen? Are you kidding? You know, I know my kids right now. I have my two youngest are seniors in high school, and they're losing their senior year. And all that hoopla, you know, with the graduation and the prom and whatever. They are angry, you know, they're angry. And I've had to do many sit downs with them and just hear them out and be there, right? Change and the unknown and what has happened, it's frustrating. And frustration has to leak. If we don't find some way to temper it and to release it in a healthy manner, it comes out as some curly-cued, really kind of release that oftentimes doesn't serve us or other people really well. Sometimes doesn't come out anyway the way we thought it would. So we definitely want to find ways to temper that. We'll be talking about it. Bargaining, let's make a deal. Making promises to the powers that be. I know that we do that in times where we are feeling extremely desperate. You know, if just this, then I'll do this, or I'll never do this again. If this can just go away. You know, I promise I'll never, whatever, if I could just feel a relief from this pain, or if this never happened to begin with. We all do it, and it's our way. It just means that we're frightened. It just means that in that moment that we're feeling desperate. There's no judgment in it. It's just something that we do. It's something that part of what we have to walk through. Okay. Piece we added in, or we want to highlight, by the way, is depression. Okay. I'll talk a little bit later whether it is clinical depression or situational depression. Okay. Periods of just sad reflection. It could be feeling low about now and what's going on now. Okay, and our bodies can actually be feeling that as well if we're not getting as much sunlight, if for some, you know, if we're not moving enough, okay, and getting those endorphins going. And we could just be sad because it's a sad situation. There's been loss of life, and there's been loss of what we normally do every day. It would be quite normal right now to be feeling down or anxious or both, frankly, okay? And the depression also comes from just a realization of this is real. This is real. It's happening. It's touched our lives. We all know someone who has been really, really affected by this, or we know someone who knows someone, or we've read stories that just really have resonated with us. Okay. Then the next step would be, once we realize kind of just the magnitude and have had to sit with that, and we realize that right now it's not changing. Once we sat there, sometimes the situation itself, time has passed. Sometimes the situation doesn't look much different, but time can be our friend. We can start feeling maybe that upward turn. That's when we talk about life transitions and change, that's that part where you feel like you've got your, kind of like yourself anchored again, or you feel re-rooted to the ground, and you're starting to feel like, okay, this isn't happy. This isn't what I want, but I have a handle on it now. I'm starting to get used to this. I'm still having to navigate my way through things, but it's not as new anymore. Things begin to feel maybe a little bit less chaotic, a bit calmer. Remember, we can be going in and out of these stages as well, but this upward turn stage seems to be kind of things, what would you say, the dust settling, if you will. We then move to what we can call that comes before the acceptance and the return of hope and looking forward, is that kind of reconstruction, working through phase. Thoughts become a little bit clearer at that point. You know, if our anxiety has diminished a bit and we've become a bit more grounded, we'll find that we can think a little bit more clearly. And that's when in life, if you've had a loss, you've actually lost someone, or suppose you've lost a job and you're dealing with a layoff right now, that's when you're starting to be grounded enough where you're making some really pragmatic decisions about, okay, how are we gonna change our budget? You know, have we applied for unemployment benefits? You know, what does it mean for our health care? You know, what kind of things do we have to get done to really kind of deal with it in the here and now? Okay. And then we arrive at that place of acceptance. And acceptance means that we're at a point that we can actually start taking those tiny steps out, putting our toe in the water, you know, whether it be socially or starting to even maybe through this stage try some new techniques, or start being open to some different ideas about how we can kind of care for ourselves, okay? And kind of just keep growing that agency, that feeling of agency in our lives. And also we begin to have the ability to look forward and start doing some future planning, okay? The part I want to draw attention to now is these are very much some of the things that we are experiencing right now and the stages we're going through. But there's this other little piece, and that is this feeling that the other shoe hasn't dropped yet, or this feeling of, well, how much longer are things going to be this way? Or that fear we can't quite pinpoint, but it kind of feels like, what's next? And you're not sure. That's called anticipatory grief. And I wanted to talk to just a bit about that, because again, that's what brings up some of those emotions that we're experiencing. And that's what puts our bodies in some of those uncomfortable states that we have encountered. Most of we just got that lingering sense, guys, it kind of more to come. And I know I keep saying, when's the curve? Did the curve flatten? You know, I keep going by all those time frames that they put out. Okay, and the next 2 weeks will be, you know, the height. I keep waiting for that, and I'm thinking, I really can't live by that. These numbers aren't completely exact. A lot has to do with testing and, you know, how much more testing has been done. How does that impact or skew data? But I think I'm looking at somebody to tell me when this is going to be over, because I have that sense of like, well, what else is coming here? You know, what else is in store? And it'd be very natural to feel that way. You know, a mourning process can happen, this anticipatory grief, guys, when there's a sense that something else is going to come, and that something else is going to mean more change or more loss, and it's going to need more adaptation. Unfortunately, we can't always name it. Sometimes we can, at least it's a little bit easier to talk about. But, you know, we also know that the world around us is not going to be exactly the same. But, you know, exactly what we've lost and exactly what it will look like is still pretty much unknown to us. So even if we can't directly connect with the grief, that anticipatory grief piece is really important, because that can also land us with some of the experiences that we have had. Okay, what does it look like? What does it kind of feel like? If the head doesn't know what to think, then the heart doesn't know what to feel. Absolutely beautiful. Here's one thing: you're on edge and you don't know why. I think it has a lot to do with this. We don't know what to think. There's nothing. Sometimes we don't feel like we can connect to anything. People ask us all the time, well, what do you think is going to happen? You know, what do you think? I know my kids are saying, Mom, do you think that we're actually going to go back to school this year? You know, we kind of want to know. but we don't know right now. So it puts you on edge. We find we get a little snappy with people. And sometimes we know why, sometimes we don't, but our tolerance lessens. It's anxiety, guys. We could actually also have that sense of like dread. You have to think about it. If we don't know what's ahead of us, we're constantly on high alert, right? We talked about all the cortisol and adrenaline that courses through our bodies. When we're under stress, think about that. We're flooding ourselves, right? Unless we're going to learn and use our coping techniques to get some emotional safety. So you're hypervigilant. It's trauma. This is trauma, and we become in this high alert state at all times. So, something drops on the floor, you're going to jump a little bit quicker and a little bit higher than you normally would, or you would have in the past. And the reason I say this is because this is par for the course, and it's normal. Okay, and we will talk a little at the end when things don't feel so right, and maybe that you need to get some help with. But anxiety, that hypervigilance. We talked about frustration. It's really hard not to get frustrated or feel angry when we've done everything we really can at this point to control what's going on. I think everybody's spent lots of energy and research, and it's all over the news, but we can't control a lot of it, right? And when we've had this going on and it's kind of that grind, sometimes small obstacles or small difficulties or barriers just feel so intolerable. You're just looking for that break, and you're looking for that next time when you can go, oh, that was easy, right? I love to push that button. Hasn't been around. Some people, some people could find this to be part of depression. Some people could say that it's acceptance, but it's almost like some of us just get resigned to the worst possible case scenario happening. I remember somebody saying, yeah, everybody's going to get it. We might as well just come to that acceptance right now. And I thought, wow, that's sad and a little scary. But, I thought a lot of people protect themselves. I mean, when you think, oh, inevitably something really, if I think of the worst possible thing that can happen and I'm able to manage it, then I'll be okay. So they go to the natural worst case scenario and think, let me put myself there. And that way it won't feel so painful when it really goes down. It works for some people. A lot of people go there. A lot of people are all talking about that social that social distancing really is geographical distancing, right? It's personal space, but it certainly isn't social distancing or social isolation. But it's strange, you think we miss hugging people and really reaching out and being around people, but sometimes people actually begin to withdraw. A lot of people, when they get anxious, some people become a swirly ball of energy, and you can actually see them swirling like a cartoon character. Other people, though, they contract back in, okay? And they almost form a shell around themselves. I just think of some people just kind of expand in this curly cued manner, and some people just kind of turn in for protection. And that's okay for a while. We all need kind of some peace and quiet reflection, but that goes on for a certain amount of time. It's certainly going to lend to emotionally to depression. Isolation definitely isn't good for prolonged periods of time. This one I connect with so completely, and I'll be talking to my colleagues, and everybody has said it at one point. I just feel so tired. But think about what when we spoke about the how our bodies react to stress. We've been in a fight, flight, or freeze stage with all that's going on. Okay, it's our body's response to the trauma. We're tired. What goes on up in our heads can make us just as tired as what goes on physically with our bodies, and also what goes on in our heart. Okay, in our head actually impacts our physical experience. So I wouldn't be out at all to feel really tired right now. Okay, so before we move on to talking about look, we've all been through, there's some commonality, okay? We can try to, feel through what's going on and name it and do some reflection. How do we know when what we're feeling isn't par for the course, when maybe we need some extra help? I'm going to just walk through really briefly, okay? Because there's a big difference here. One is I feel really anxious. Okay, everybody's been feeling anxiety. Anxiety and prolonged anxiety is really, it is painful, okay? And it's no joke. A little bit different though, a panic attack is your body goes through that same process of the racing heart and the dry mouth, and some people feel like they're having a heart attack and they have trouble breathing, and their mind, and they feel like people have said scrambled eggs for brains, and they just can't think clearly. That long term and coming out of nowhere is a panic attack. That's a little bit different. You know, you want to call your primary care physician about that, or reach out to and get involved in some teletherapy. There's so much out there. Because really what happens is these feelings of anxiety can just begin if we're not caretaking, or if we're a bit vulnerable to it. Some of these feelings of anxiety can begin to generalize itself. So what happens is out of nowhere, the body just starts to react as if right then and there we're under attack, when we could just be sitting on the couch watching a favorite show. Just kind of comes out of nowhere. So that's kind of the difference between feeling anxious and really kind of having a panic attack or having a panic disorder, if you will. Okay, people said, I feel really down, I feel really sad. We get it. You know, it is part of that grieving process, and even the anticipatory grief process. But when this is going on for a couple weeks and it has really severely impacted your sleeping habits and your eating habits, and you're isolating, and you start to having thoughts of hurting yourself, or why am I here and what's it all worth, you need to immediately reach out, tell someone you love and that you trust, and get help immediately. Okay? I'm so afraid. That feeling of fear, it's really hard. It's really interwoven with anxiety, but also there's a realness to it. To be, you know, feeling fearful, there's something out there to fear, right? But that's different than paranoia. Paranoia would be, well, it can rear its head in many different ways, but paranoia would be that everything, perhaps thoughts of, people can hear my thoughts. You know, people are trying to infuse COVID into my home. Somebody's trying to hurt me through this. Messages are being sent that are about me. You know, the radio broadcaster speaking right to me. Those kind of thoughts of reference, or yeah, those special thoughts, if you will, that's not fear. That's something that we really need to get assistance with right away. And again, reaching out immediately to get help. Okay. Use of recreational drugs. We talked before, if you numb the pain, then you don't feel the pain. And if you don't feel the pain, you can't walk through it. Okay. The pain is excruciating, and it can be excruciating, but the pain will not destroy you. Okay. There is one way that I know that emotional pain can hurt you, and that is a syndrome called broken heart syndrome, where it actually impacts your heart. And it's very, very rare. And I put it out there because I need people to really understand that it's really difficult. But feeling the pain will not destroy you. We need to walk through to get to the other side. If you're having way too many cocktails at night, or smoking marijuana, or utilizing pills that weren't prescribed, or you're overutilizing pills that are prescribed, again, it's masking the pain, and the pain's going to be there waiting. Okay, so get help to be able to walk through the pain. I lost my appetite versus I have an eating disorder. When people are stressed out or sad or anxious, you know, sometimes that goes right to our bellies. We all know there's people that overeat when they're stressed or sad, and there's people that don't eat. That's different than an eating disorder. Excuse me. An eating disorder is when we have we're thinking about, we have body dysmorphia, we're not seeing ourselves as we really are. We feel that we are not worthy of eating. Controlling and restricting takes on a whole new meaning and actually becomes a disorder itself. That's much, much different. Okay, when you have those types of symptoms, or as a parent, or if you know somebody that is having that far end of the spectrum difficulty, please make sure that they're getting help and that you refer them to get help. Okay? So definite difference. And you know what? If you're questioning or you feel that you're on the line between the two, speak to someone about that. Okay? It could be someone from your place of worship. It can be a counselor. It can be your physician. Okay? But it's probably time to kind of explore that a little bit if you're not sure. Okay. So we've talked a lot about what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, how it doesn't go, the journey does not go in any order that we can necessarily predict. Nothing much really does, but we can begin to identify and find that solid ground. Sometimes the identification of what it is we're feeling, knowing that it's not odd, knowing that it is going to be par for the course and the part of the human experience can be really helpful. The next piece is, what do we do about it? How do we take care of ourselves? You know, what about protecting ourselves and protecting our wellness? So the next part of our time today together, I'd like to walk through some of that. Finding solid ground. We have a plethora of ideas here, and I just want to remind you that our website that we'll bring up at the end also has more resources. But one, guys, start your day with a tiny bit of caffeine. If you're not a caffeine drinker, please don't start drinking caffeine. But if you are within reason, a little cup of coffee or some green tea has been linked to lowering rates of depression in long-term studies. Also, in small amounts, moderate amounts, it can help clear our thinking a bit. Again, that doesn't mean you're going to go drink a pot of coffee or down 4 Red Bulls to get you going, but just a little bit. Really important, guys, take a break from the media. You know, everywhere we turn, the news is on, or if it's a show, the ticker tape at the bottom is telling us the latest COVID updates with the numbers and whatnot. Just try to, if you're going to watch TV or read or listen or get on any kind of social media, try to limit the type of media that's all COVID related. There's a wonderful world out there on top of and in spite of this that we want to keep attached to. We keep living. What I found recently is a lot of comedians or actors are putting out shows or things you can access via YouTube or podcasts that are really all about everything I talk about today is going to be upbeat and good news. And I just love that they're doing that because we're being so inundated with just the heavy stuff, right? Unfortunately, we all have a sense of curiosity that can go towards the morbid at times. So really, you can't blame the news media. That's their job, and that's what keeps people tuning in. But let's get away from it. Really protect yourself from it. Breathing. Boy, the first thing that goes when we get nervous is our breathing. We either, one, find ourselves holding our breath, okay, or we begin to take very shallow, ineffective breaths. There's a lot out there on effective deep breathing techniques, okay? And if we have time at the end, I'll try to do one. I can't promise, but if I get a couple extra minutes, maybe I will. But it's really about breathing in through the nose, envisioning that balloon in our diaphragm filling with air. We're going to hold it a bit, and then we're going to release it and blow it out. We can blow out gently, or we can make a whooshing sound, such as shh, as we're releasing it. We're going to breathe in through the nose because that triggers our parasympathetic nervous system. And people might say, yeah, okay. Well, what that does is it helps relax our lungs. So when we take that breath in, it's much more effective. So definitely do your breathing, stretching, meditation, exercise, okay? They all release the endorphins. Plus, they're just darn good for our bodies. You know, the old saying, moving a muscle changes a thought. We really need to practice that right now, okay? We could really fall deep into our couch cushions. And I know sometimes we want to, but really need to get up and just move a muscle. Eating healthy, well-balanced meals. Studies, more than I could ever refer to, out there about what we put in our bodies and what it means to our systems and how we can feed our bodies and our souls. So we need to think of it as not watching what we eat, but eating with kindness, okay, self-kindness, right? Getting plenty of sleep. Everybody has different sleep patterns. Most, they're saying 7 to 8 hours. They're also finding that if the room is on the cooler side rather than the warmer side, you tend to sleep better. If you're going to have a glass of wine in the evening, leave some time between that and bed. Although a cocktail might make you feel relaxed and even drowsy, it messes with your blood sugar. So you're going to go to bed feeling wonderful, and halfway through the night, when your blood sugar levels change, it's going to wake you up. And also, if you're drinking too much, it can also dehydrate you. So that would also wake you up. So temper that, okay? Connecting with others, connect. Talk to people. Let them know about how you feel, okay? We've got to trust, okay? And when people come to you and tell you how they feel, give yourself a break, okay? Practice compassionate listening. People really don't want to hear a list of things that you suggest they're doing. People really just kind of want to vent and tell you how they feel and know that you're listening, okay? And we can do that by reflecting back to them what we think we hear them saying. You know, check in, really listen, free yourself to hear. If you are listening just to respond to somebody, you're so busy getting ready for how you're going to respond, you're not even hearing them. Free yourself of thinking you have to do that. People don't really just want a bunch of ideas, they just want to be heard, okay? We talked before about hydration. Plenty of fluids, guys. We all know that's great for us. Avoiding drugs and alcohol. Again, if you're going to numb the pain, it's still going to be there, okay? At some point, you're going to become unnumb, and it's going to be there, okay? So get help. If you think you're teetering, reach out, get some help now. Volunteering. There is plenty of things out there online that people are looking for volunteers for, from making masks to reaching out to the elderly. So look it up. There's plenty out there. Whenever we give back, obviously we're not only helping the community, we're also helping ourselves, okay? It becomes meaningful, part of who we are, you know, that community connection. Take a tour of a virtual national park or a museum. There's such cool stuff out there right now that they're doing for free, where you can click on and go to the Grand Tetons for an hour, and the landscape's just beautiful. They put beautiful music to it, and the museums. So, you know, really try to get creative. And what I like about that is that we're on electronics, but we're not using it to look at anything COVID related. So anything you can do that's non-COVID related, great. I love this. Work on your strengths. This is a time for a couple things, guys. This is a time for reflecting about, you know, start a journal. Sometimes doing a little gratitude check every night before bed, or even as we greet our day. Write down what we are grateful for, okay? And why, and who we're grateful to, and why, all right? Make a list of your strengths. Decide that you're going to venture out and try something you're really good at, okay, in a way that you've never experimented with it before, okay? I know myself, I have tons of recipes that I've wanted to try, and they're not necessarily hard. I just never done it. I'm going to do at least 2 new recipes this week. So my family's just going to have to deal with it. Okay, writing a poem. Geez, that's a great way to explore what's inside. Painting. Go on Pinterest. You ever have like a small corner in your room or a space in your house that's just dull? And that's where your eye goes every time you sit in that particular room. Go on Pinterest. Figure out a really cool thing to put in a corner that really transforms the feeling of a room. So show someone love. There's all different imaginative ways that we can connect to people. If you're thinking about someone, reach out to them, you know, and you might not hear back. Reach out to them, because it's okay for you to share your heart, okay, with no expectations. Just share your heart. We talked about meditation and exercise, limiting your time online. If you have a bath, nice, warm bubble bath, Epsom salts are wonderful. Light the candles, put on some soft music. Even if you don't have a bath or a hot tub, get in the shower. Tell everybody, this is my 40-minute timeout. Bring the candles in, bring the music in. Sometimes they have those tablets that are aromatherapy for the shower. They're wonderful. You know, make your own spa night or morning or afternoon. For those of us who always sit in the hub of the house wondering why we don't get peace and we get angry about it, make yourself your own special space that doesn't happen to be right in the heart of your house. Because if you think you're going to get peace and quiet in the middle of your house, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure there. Find your special place. Find that space that feels good to you, or make it such, okay? Hang out with your pet, guys. I know I've been doing it. It's wonderful. We all know with the studies, it brings your heart rate and your blood pressure down. It just brings on feelings of wellness. Watch a funny show, you know, watch something silly, something that's not deep and complicated. Just really great distraction for your mind and can help settle some of that noise. How many people have books they've been wanting to get to? You know, get your most comfortable clothes in that space you've created, put on some great lighting for you, and just get lost in a book, a novel, a harlequin, whatever it is that you like and need at that moment. It's great for you. Take a trip down memory lane. Get some of those pictures out. Start going through them. If you're with the kids, take that trip down memory lane with them. They'll really enjoy it. My gosh, drawing, coloring, any way we can express ourselves creatively is just wonderful. Working with clay, working with your hands, digging in your garden and getting connected to the earth. Beautiful. Really grounding stuff, guys. Laughing, that's wonderful. I myself, I love to laugh. That really helps my state of mind. And they actually have on YouTube, they actually have recordings of laughter yoga that they do. And it's really hysterical. It's wonderful. Laughter is contagious, guys. And it releases endorphins, it burns calories, and it feels good. Going off the grid is great. Get rid of your electronics. Nothing bad's going to happen, I promise. You know, dancing around during your housework. Put some music on, jam it. Put your favorite stuff on and get your work done, okay? You'll be dancing, so you're getting your exercise. You'll get your levels of cortisol down, and you'll get your endorphins up. At the same time, your kitchen will be clean, right? Really important, guys, self-affirmation. Some of us are really, really mean to each other. I'm sorry. That wasn't a Freudian slip. We're really, really mean to ourselves, okay? I think probably we're meaner to ourselves than we could ever be to anybody else. That's for sure. Practice self-talk that is kind. And when you find you got that little guy in your head on the horse ready to just gallop away with all kinds of bad thoughts, halt the horse and say, no, 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 no. Nope, I'm not being lazy right now. I just need to slow down for a minute, right? When I'm hungry, I need to get something to eat. When I'm tired, I need to rest. When I'm sad, I need a hug. If I'm sad, I need to get that out somehow. If I'm feeling anxious, I need to walk, okay? So we have needs. When you start going down to the negative thinking and the putting yourself down, halt the horse and just say something kind to yourself and something positive. We certainly all deserve it. Okay, a couple just learning something new. I love gratitude and achievement. Write a couple things down every day. You know, video therapy, guys, there is no shortage of video therapy right now. This might be a great time to get yourself connected to someone. It's a great gift. It really is a great gift to yourselves. You know, set up a vacation for a year from now. They say that the minute you decide to even plan a vacation, that it immediately changes your mood. So even if it's camping, it doesn't have to be something big and expensive, okay? I love that. Boost your mood for 8 weeks, and then you really have something to look forward to. We are actually running very low on time. We are at 2:50. So that means we have 10 minutes left. And I think I would rather leave time for questions and answers. But don't forget to look up those really great deep breathing techniques online. They're wonderful.
Okay, if you have any questions, hit on the Q&A button and type in your question, or if you'd rather do it verbally, click on the chat button and we will unmute you and you can ask your question. Thank you. Remy, there was a response
Okay.
from it's not really a question, but it's from an anonymous
Uh-huh.
attendee. That person was saying they are dealing with daily and immense anger about how the institutions he's trusted are failing him or her
Mm-hmm.
and all of the communities, and the massive issues in the systems that this pandemic is magnifying.
Mm-hmm. So that's the statement he made? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, guys, this is an example. I mean, this is someone who has probably had experience, caught up in systems of care. And right now during this time where we are very nervous and frantic and we've got that anticipatory grief going, any symptoms or difficulties we're having can oftentimes become exacerbated. And if not, um, I've got to tell you, there's a lot of stuff on the news where this state has done a lot right, and there's some pieces that they haven't. And this gentleman sounds like he's very, very concerned about that. What I would say to someone who's feeling and needing to release some of their anger is a couple things. Write about it. Two, if you're feeling very frightened about how you're feeling, and you're afraid that you could do something or be at risk, you need to let somebody know. Reach out to 211 or one of the warm lines. But if you need to express yourself, express yourself. That's what writing to our town reps are about. Writing an editorial, even writing in a journal, speaking to others about it, joining groups and taking action to be part of some of our state's decision making. But if that anger is really frightening you, anybody, immediately, if it's really imminent, get help immediately. Go to the emergency room or dial 911. But any kind of pain that we're experiencing where we want support, we at MHC have our 1-800 number where we can help guide you to some great resources, but also 211 would be a really great call. And if by chance this gentleman came back on, we could actually send him to 211 or make suggestions to help.
Okay, Remy, we have another question from a Madeline. Madeline, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, I'm going to hear her. Hi, Madeline.
Let's see. Madeline, can you hit your unmute button?
If you're unable to unmute, don't forget that you can try the chat portion, so you could still ask your question. Let's just give her a minute there.
And there was another question in the chat. Is it possible that this situation can cause or worsen PTSD?
That's a great question. Certainly can, yes. And it depends. I think that's why it's important to practice finding that solid ground and getting help if you need to, because this in itself, if not managed well, can become a traumatic experience. It doesn't necessarily have to, but any kind of an event that's very worrisome can often, there's a difference between it being an event that you'll remember and a really hard one and trauma, okay? Because trauma kind of stays with us and replays itself in many different ways, but practice self-care, getting support, okay? Self-care and support is huge. That will diminish the likelihood that if you didn't have trauma, this will not become traumatic per se, okay? And if you have had trauma in your past, this would be a trigger. And it's really important at that point to pay attention, honor it, and get the support that you need, and get the facts and the help that you need. Thank you. That was a great question.
Okay. Remy, the last slide for contacts that people
Yep.
may.
Absolutely. We do have, this is going to be going up electronically. but we do have the 211-911 suicide hotline number and what have you attached to the PowerPoint. Okay, so please see the back of the slide. Okay, remember to breathe, guys, and let's take contact information here. Okay. Any additional questions or question that may have been asked that I didn't answer completely, feel free to reach right out to me. If you are interested in a more customized type of webinar, we are happy to craft one for you. You have Ruth's contact information there. We have that great, Wellness Wednesday MHC at Home series. You can see the link there on our www.mcon.org/at-home. And we all need any kind of help and support you can give at this time. We're still out there searching for any kind of PPE equipment, and any donation, as small as it is, would go a long way in helping us support our program participants in the community.
Well, we are getting a lot of thank yous here.
Okay. It's been my absolute joy to spend time with you guys today. We'll make sure that we get this PowerPoint up, and don't forget that contact information there. Please reach out. We're here. And like I promised at the beginning, remember, you're not alone in what you're feeling right now. Okay? We're here.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
all the time we have for questions. For those that we were not able to address during this webinar, we will respond to you via email. Thank you for joining us with today's webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.